16 WAPT News in Jackson, Mississippi. This is the Commitment 2023 Gubernatorial Debate with Republican Governor Tate Reeves seeking a second term as the Magnolia State's top elected official, touting Mississippi's economic gains and education progress since he took office in 2020. But Northern District Public Service Commissioner and former Nettleton Mayor Brandon Presley seeks to flip the governor's mansion blue for the first time in 2 decades, promising to clean up corruption in state government and expand Medicaid as rural hospitals across the state struggle to stay open. Tonight, the candidates answer your questions as they vie for your vote in Tuesday's general election. Moderated by 16 WAPT's Troy Johnson and Megan West, in partnership with Mississippi Public Broadcasting. This is Commitment 2023.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Megan West.
And I'm Troy Johnson. Before we introduce our candidates, let's go over the rules for tonight's debate.
And the questions we're posing tonight come directly from you, our viewers, over the last few weeks. So tonight, you'll hear the candidates answer your questions for the next hour. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer.
That's right. And once that time runs out, they'll be allowed to finish their thought before stopping. If a candidate does not respect the time cues, his microphone will be cut.
If either candidate mentions his opponent during his answer, his opponent will have 30 seconds for rebuttal before we move on to the next question. At the end of the debate tonight, each candidate will have 2 minutes for his closing statement. The
order in which the candidates answer the first question and give their closing statement will be decided by a coin flip.
We held that coin flip just a few moments ago and determined that Governor Reeves will answer our first question first.
And we begin with the topic that was asked most by viewers. A majority of questions we received revolved around this topic, its Medicaid expansion. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, in 2022, Mississippi had one of the highest percentages of people without health insurance coverage in the country. Governor, 40 states have expanded their Medicaid programs. Mississippi has not. Where do you stand on the expansion of Medicaid in Mississippi?
Well, thank you, Troy and Megan, and thanks to WAPT for hosting this debate. And most of all, thanks to the people of the great state of Mississippi for the privilege and the trust that you have placed in me to serve as Mississippi's 65th governor. It has been the honor of my professional life. Medicaid expansion is a topic that has been discussed often in the state. In fact, it's probably the topic that my team and I have worked on more than anything else. And at the end of the day, what we have determined is it does not make sense for the people of Mississippi. It does not make sense for the people of Mississippi because if you were to add 300,000 people to the Medicaid rolls, about 100,000 of those individuals would actually be currently on private insurance. That's private insurance. That's taking 100,000 people that are currently on private insurance and putting them on the government rolls. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And so it's much like what President Obama said when he passed the Affordable Care Act. He said, if you like your doctor, you can keep it. But that didn't turn out to be true. And the fact is, if you're out there on private insurance, you might lose yours if my opponent's proposal goes into effect.
All right, Governor, thank you. Now we go to the commissioner for his comment.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks to WAPT for hosting us tonight. I'm glad we could be on a debate stage. You know, I challenged Tate to 5 debates. He chickened out of 4 of them. Glad he would show up finally tonight. When it comes to Medicaid expansion, look, the results are clear. 230,000 working Mississippians tonight. These are folks who are sacking groceries, folks who are out roofing houses, people who are working in hotels tonight, scrubbing toilets and changing sheets on beds, people that take jobs that Tate Reeves would never take, that are working every day, that deserve health care. 40 states in this country have expanded Medicaid, including states like Oklahoma, where Donald Trump carried every county in the state of Oklahoma. So this is not about politics. This is about people. We have lost $1 billion a year by not expanding Medicaid in Mississippi. It is an idea that's time has come. It's past time to do it. And as governor, I would take steps on day one to expand Medicaid, join 40 other states, take the $1 billion a year, save 34 rural hospitals, get insurance to 230,000 working Mississippians, and create 16,000 good healthcare jobs.
Okay, thank you. Governor, you have a chance to respond.
Well, I think the people of Mississippi know that my opponent, when he qualified to run for governor, he couldn't make it an entire hour without lying to the people of Mississippi. And on this debate stage, he couldn't make it 1 full minute without lying to the people of Mississippi. He doesn't have the authority to do anything on the first day in office. But like everything else he proposes, he simply is lying to the people of Mississippi.
Let me respond to that just a minute. I don't know if the governor doesn't know the authority of his job or not, but the governor can file for a Section 1115 waiver. And he has actually the Division of Medicaid is under the governor's office. We all know that if Tate Reeves wanted to expand Medicaid, it would have already been expanded. The truth of the matter is, Tate, there's a majority in the House and Senate of Democrats and Republicans right now that want to expand Medicaid, and you're standing in the way of 230,000 working people that have jobs that you're too good to do yourself that would be able to benefit if, in fact, we expanded Medicaid. Its time has come.
Gentlemen, I want to move on to the second question, which is dealing with the same topic. It is still healthcare and healthcare access in Mississippi. Nearly half of Mississippi's rural hospitals are at risk of closing. A majority across the state are struggling financially. What is your plan to tackle the hospitals in crisis here in Mississippi, Commissioner Presley?
Thank you very much. And I think this is a timely topic. We do have 34 hospitals in Mississippi that are on the brink of closure. Tate Reeves didn't open his mouth in this campaign about trying to help those hospitals until he got into a tight race and he saw the polls tightening. And then he came up with a scheme that's going to actually tax our hospitals $178 million, does nothing to help our rural hospitals, and does absolutely nothing for 230,000 working Mississippians. This is why we need to expand Medicaid. There are other changes that I'm willing to look at as governor, but I can promise you this, the first step needs to be to expand Medicaid in Mississippi. A majority of Republicans support expanding Medicaid. A vast majority of Mississippians support it. It is the right thing to do. And let me tell you this, we talk about the cost of the program. Tate Reeves' his own state economist says that this program will pay for itself. Well, if he doesn't believe his own state economist, he ought to fire his own state economist. But the truth is this program will pay for itself, create 16,000 good healthcare jobs, and get healthcare to 230,000 working. And I want to make that point clear, working Mississippians.
Governor Reeves.
Brandon Presley now twice has tried to convince the people that are viewing tonight that he knows what conservative Republicans think. He's lying to the people yet again. The fact of the matter is, expanding Medicaid is not the best policy for rural hospitals. But you don't have to look very far to prove that. You see, there's a state to our west called Louisiana. There's a state to our west named Arkansas. And the very same report that Brandon often quotes that says that between 40 and 45% of Mississippi's rural hospitals are in financial troubles and at risk of closure also say that in the state of Louisiana, 40 to 45% of their rural hospitals are at risk of closure. And in the state of Arkansas, 40 to 45% of their rural hospitals are at risk of closure. Guess what the difference is in Mississippi and Louisiana and Arkansas? Louisiana and Arkansas have expanded Medicaid, Mississippi has not. It is not the financial windfall that Brandon Presley would have you believe. It costs taxpayers about $300 million a year. It takes individuals that are currently on private insurance and puts them on government insurance. And for all of those reasons, it's often the case when Democrats talk about expanding government services, there are unintended consequences. The unintended consequence of expanding Medicaid to 300,000 Mississippians is moving individuals off of private insurance. And by the way, that's bad for rural hospitals as well, because the fact is that when you move them from private insurance, the reimbursement rates for those 100,000 people are actually lower when they go on Medicaid. And that's why the financial scheme doesn't work.
30 seconds for rebuttal.
Sure, thank you very much. Look, the fact of the matter is we're not talking about Arkansas, we're not talking about Louisiana, we're talking about Mississippi. I want to be governor of the state of Mississippi. I'm not running in Arkansas and Louisiana. The fact is the Mississippi Hospital Association supported me because they know that I will take action on day one to work with the legislature to expand Medicaid. That's first and foremost. Secondly is 40 other states in this country, none of which, like Mississippi, let me give you a good example. Oklahoma, I told you Donald Trump carried every county in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma expanded Medicaid. South Dakota hadn't voted for a Democrat for president in decades. The voters of South Dakota, through the ballot initiative, which, by the way, we've lost our right to vote under this guy, South Dakota voters expanded Medicaid. The truth is, it's one way in which we save our rural hospitals, deal with uncompensated care, and get health care to 230,000 working people.
Okay.
I just want to thank Commissioner Presley for noticing that Donald Trump endorsed me for governor of the state of Mississippi today. He likes to throw his name out there, but Donald Trump's only supporting the only conservative in this race.
We've got to move on to our next question. Both of you have proposed tax cuts. Governor Reeves, you've continued to advocate for abolishing the state's income tax. Commissioner Presley, you proposed to eliminate the state's tax on food and cut fees on car tags in half. We're going to go to Governor on this question. How do you plan to get this done? How do you plan to replace the revenue that would be lost?
Look, I've been a tax cutter as governor. I was a tax cutter as lieutenant governor. In fact, in 2016, we passed the largest tax cut in Mississippi history. In 2021, we passed an even bigger tax cut. Combined, we've cut taxes over $1.2 billion for the people of this state. I do believe that eliminating the income tax is the best public policy for the state. In fact, we have Texas to our west and Florida to our east. We have Tennessee to our north. And Mississippi is at a competitive disadvantage when it comes to growing our economy, when it comes to economic development, when it comes to growing our population, because we have an income tax. We tax work when these other states do not.
Commissioner, how would you replace that lost revenue under your scheme?
Let me say, I'm glad you used the word scheme, because Tate Reeves' tax plan is such a scheme, he couldn't even get it passed in a majority, supermajority, House and Senate made up of his own party. Look, I want to cut the sales tax on groceries. We have the highest sales tax on food of any state in the United States of America. If you go out tonight and buy feed for a hog or feed for a cow, you pay 0 sales tax to feed that hog or that cow. But if you want to feed your baby or you want to feed your family, you pay the highest sales tax in America. Now, Tate Reeves wants to talk about being such a tax cutter. Hey, he talks so tough, but he does so little. He's been in office for 12 long years. He could have passed those tax cuts. He could have gotten the sales tax off for groceries. He could have cut car tag fees in half. Instead, he wanted to funnel millions of dollars to his personal trainer and be involved in the state's largest public corruption scandal rather than getting money back to the people of Mississippi. I would make sure that we got the sales tax off of groceries, cut car tag fees in half, and saved working Mississippians money. He's had 12 years to get this done. He's done nothing.
Okay, Governor, rebuttal.
$1.2 billion in tax cuts in the last 6 years. $1.2 billion we've cut taxes. If you earn income, if you make a living, if you earn income and you make a living in this state, we've cut your taxes. You have more money in your pocket because of conservative leadership in the Mississippi legislature and in the governor's office. And if we were to turn Mississippi blue, we would never see another tax cut in the state of Mississippi.
Thank you, Governor.
Just a minute. Here's the fact. He's had 12 years. He can talk about whatever numbers he wants to use. Ladies and gentlemen, in Mississippi, you still pay the highest sales tax on groceries in America. Tate Reeves has had 12 years to do something about it. He's done nothing.
Next question.
If you don't mind, I would just like the people to understand, very quickly, of course, I'd like the people to understand that the very policies that have driven grocery prices up 19.6% since Joe Biden got elected president are the policies that Brandon Presley would like to enact. He talks about the grocery tax, which is 7%. Prices are up 19.7% because Brandon Presley and his solar panel buddies have tried to run the oil business out of America, and it's cost people at the grocery store. Bottom line.
I'm going to move on to the next question. Before I do, just quickly, we'd like to ask that you not speak while your opponent is speaking. We want our viewers to be able to hear what everybody's saying equally on the stage tonight. Let me get into this next question. We mentioned that these questions come directly from our viewers, and they've been coming in over the past few weeks. A lot of them have had questions about the flurry of ads they have seen on the air in the course of this race. Specifically, some of the attack ads, to be honest. We want to give each of you a chance to respond to some of those ads that have been on the air. This question is going to go first to Commissioner Presley. Let me read it to you. Regarding your time with the Public Service Commission. An ad on the air has claimed you knowingly broke the law by accepting money from a solar energy company under your purview as a public service commissioner. Your response to that?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. First and foremost, Tate Reeves knows that ad is a complete bald-faced lie. And I'll tell you why he knows it's a lie. The minute that the company involved threatened his campaign with a lawsuit for defamation, guess what he did? He changed the ad because he knew it was a lie from the beginning. These solar companies are not public utilities. Tate Reeves knows that. The truth is, I told somebody, they asked me about negative ads. If he'd quit lying on me, I'd quit telling the truth on him. And the truth is, in this campaign, this governor has been ensnarled in the largest public corruption scandal in Mississippi history. $77 million diverted for things like Brett Favre, a volleyball court. For Tate Reeves' personal trainer, $1,300,000. And what did Tate Reeves do? He fired the independent investigator. He delayed depositions 13 times indefinitely. He is at the center of the state's largest public corruption scandal. And so what do crooked politicians do when they've been caught in a scandal like this? They try to throw some sort of accusations at somebody else. He knows it's a lie. The minute he was threatened to be sued, he changed the ad.
Megan, you would have to believe in time travel to believe that I was involved in the DHS scandal. The fact of the matter is, I was sworn in as governor in January of 2020. It all happened before I was governor. And that's the reason even the liberal media in Jackson has called Brandon's accusations false. They've called it dishonest. They've called it half-baked because it's a lie. It's a lie being perpetrated by the Democrat National Committee, which is funding his campaign. 80% of the money that he is spending in this campaign has come from California, New York, Massachusetts, and Washington, D.C. And if you're keeping score at home, that's over $10 million in far-left radicals funding his campaign. I'll just say this about the scandal that he is involved in. 3 public service commissioners in the state of Mississippi have gone to jail for doing exactly what he's done. He's taken money from his solar panel buddies. He's approved their ability to produce energy. That's illegal in Mississippi. The law is clear, and Brandon Presley knowingly broke the law.
30 seconds.
In response to that,
Yeah.
Look, first and foremost, report out just yesterday in Tate Reeves' pay-to-play scheme, because everybody knows that he's an arm twister for campaign contributions. He'll do anything that is something that will benefit his campaign. His contributors have benefited over $1 billion. One guy gave him $25,000 and then about 48 hours later became a gaming commissioner. He knows these attacks on me are lies. It's why he changed the ad when he was threatened to be sued with it. But the truth of the matter is he is at the center of the state's largest public corruption scandal. He knows that. We found out his brother, we've got text messages where his brother was text messaging with Brett Favre about how to be a PR agent.
That's me. My name is on the ballot.
That's fine.
Okay,
You need to
gentlemen.
keep my
You
family
can
out.
Gentlemen,
read that.
gentlemen,
Those are the text
gentlemen,
messages.
we're-
Those are the text
We have to
messages.
keep on
30
time.
seconds is up, and we will continue
we're-
that discussion with
Exactly,
our next
because
question.
our next question is to you, Governor. And that ad that attacks your potential involvement in the TANF scandal says in part, under Governor Reeves, millions of dollars were steered from education and jobs to help your friend's personal trainer. And it also points to the firing of the TANF investigator. Now, how do you respond to those claims? You have a minute.
Well, just as I said earlier, you would have to believe in time travel to believe that I was involved in the TANF scandal. The fact of the matter is, it all happened before I was governor, between 2015 and 2019. Brandon Presley knows that. But just like he'll lie about my family, he'll lie about me, he'll lie about everything he believes or doesn't believe because he doesn't have any core beliefs. That's the reason that 80% of his money came from California and New York and Washington, D.C. Why on earth would someone in California and New York want to give him $10 million to run for governor of Mississippi? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And the reason is because he'll say anything to anybody. He'll say anything to anybody. When he's in the room in California, he's telling them one thing, and when he's in the room in Mississippi, he's telling the voters something completely different. Mississippi doesn't need a governor like that.
All right, Commissioner, your response.
Thank you for letting me respond to that. First and foremost, he wants to talk about time travel. You don't have to travel too far back, Tate. You fired the independent investigator in this case when he got a little too close to your buddies, a little too close to your campaign contributors, a little too close to those who finance your way of life. And guess what? Then you fired him. Then you fired him. Look at me. I'm telling you, you fired him. Thank you. You fired him when he got a little too close to your buddies, when he got a little too close to those people in your inner circle. You fired him. So that puts you at the center of.
The person who wrote you a big campaign check.
Look,
right?
I'm talking.
Did he write you a big campaign check? Did he write you a big campaign check?
Did you fire him? Did you fire him? I'm not finished. And he wants to talk about California and New York. Let me tell you this, Governor. How about you talk about Caledonia and New Hebron? You're obsessed with California and New York. I hadn't been to California. I don't even know what you're talking about. But the truth is, you are a bought and paid for politician, and you know it, and the people of Mississippi know it, and they know good and well that you've had the guts and the backbone to do nothing to clean up corruption in Mississippi, because you've been the chief cheerleader with pom-poms in your hand for corruption.
30
Can I
seconds.
say something about Caledonia?
Have you been there?
Yes.
I went to breakfast in Caledonia last Monday morning, and I'm going to tell you something, Brandon. You're going to get more votes in California than you get in Caledonia.
I'll take that. I'll take it.
We'll move on now to our next question. We did receive a number of questions from viewers regarding the TANF scandal. The temporary assistance for needy families scandal was the largest embezzlement case in Mississippi history. This question will go first to you, Commissioner Presley. What is your plan to ensure that the $77 million in TANF money is fully recovered?
I am so glad you asked that question, because here's going to be another big difference between me and Tate. I am the only candidate in this race of the two people standing up here. He has not opened his mouth one time in this campaign to talk about ethics reform. Have you heard him say anything about how to stop this scandal from happening again? Absolutely not. He's not opened his mouth, because he has been the chief cheerleader of corruption, like I said, with pom-poms in those hands for 12 long years. I have offered a bold ethics plan that does several things. Number one, we would stop the unlimited campaign contributions that come into Mississippi. We have a system today, and Tate Reeves is a poster child of this, that is bought and sold to the highest bidder for the most cash. It's well known around the Capitol. If you want to see the governor, you better milk out a campaign check. If you want to talk to him about an issue, you better make sure you're on his right side. I'm not going to be that type of governor. So I proposed a bold ethics plan that not only stops the TANF scandal from happening again, that would allow the Ethics Commission to hire an independent investigator, unlike the one that he fired, and the Ethics Commission could hire an independent investigator that could not be fired by either the governor or the legislature. He's not opened his mouth about ethics. He's not going to open his mouth about ethics reform. He is the poster child of this broken, corrupt system.
Commissioner Governor Reeves.
3 public service commissioners in Mississippi have gone to jail in the last 30 years for doing exactly what Brandon Presley did. 3 public service commissioners have gone to jail by doing exactly what Brandon Presley did. But during my administration, we actually have sued to recover every single penny that is owed the taxpayers of Mississippi. When we decided to change law firms, we hired one that was more experienced, that had more people, that had more resources, wherein the person that was doing it was an individual sole practitioner and just didn't have the resources available. He also is a big campaign donor to my opponent. But the fact of the matter is, we hired a law firm that was full service, that has offices in 15 states, that has sued every single individual that is alleged to have received funds illegally. I'm the only person standing on this stage that has actually fought to recover those dollars. That's a fact. It is an absolute fact.
30 seconds, yes, sir.
A couple of things. If you think Tate Reeves will take on corruption, I've got some beachfront property in Nettleton to sell you. We know he's not going to take on corruption. Secondly, he wants to talk about the law firm he hired. Guess who that law firm is? Guess who they are? Tate Reeves campaign contributors. And they gave to him before that. They gave to him after that. He's held fundraisers with people who were involved in the TANF scandal. He continues tonight, right now, to fund his campaign off of campaign contributions from Zach and Nancy New, 2 people that are being carted off to jail. Tate Reeves still funds his campaign tonight off of money that they gave him.
All right, Commissioner, thank
If
you.
I could, if y'all don't mind,
Just
the voters
just
really need
quickly.
to hear this. Look, 3 public service commissioners have gone to jail for doing exactly what Brandon Presley has done. And now he wants to convince the voters that he is going to clean up corruption. What a hypocrite he is.
He continues to mention my name. I'm going to continue to ask for my time. Let me say this to you, Tate. You know, and I know the minute you got threatened to be sued, you changed the ad because what you're telling is a lie. Solar companies are not public utilities. The law is clear. You know it. I didn't violate any law. But here's what we do know. Here's what we do know. You hired, I did not. Absolutely not.
Regulate entities. You took
Now, you know good and well.
All right, gentlemen.
Let me ask you this. Did you fire the independent investigator?
Gentlemen, we need to move on.
We have to move on.
There are more questions from our viewers that we want to get to tonight, and all of them came from our viewers, but some are coming to the candidates straight from the mouth of voters. I want you guys to take a look at the screen to your right. Mark Ember has a question about welfare reform.
Hi, I'm Mark Ember, and I have a question for both candidates. Why are we not exploring welfare reform to eliminate single-family homes? It's an easy situation to fix. Instead of cutting somebody off when they get married, give them a 6-month to 12-month transition to where they can stabilize their new home and then cut their benefits off or taper them down over a 6 or 12-month period.
All right, Governor, you have the first crack at that question.
Well, obviously, I appreciate the question, and that's a topic that we'll be happy to look into. The fact of the matter is, you shouldn't get penalized because you get married. In fact, here in Mississippi and across America today, we need to encourage more two-family homes. We need to encourage more moms and dads that are working to help with their children. And that's certainly policies that I'm more than willing to look into and more than willing to try to get done so that we make it easier for people that have children to take care of those children.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the question. I will say this. Obviously, we would love to have every family have a two-parent home. But many families end up the way mine did. My daddy was murdered the first day I was in the 3rd grade. I was 8 years old. My mother was a single parent raising me and my sister that's here tonight, my brother. We had to have our lights cut off sometimes because guess what? My mama just couldn't pay the light bill. It wasn't that she didn't know our power bill was due. It wasn't that she didn't see the cutoff notice. My mama just didn't have the money. Some of my earliest memories are going behind the laundromat at Nettleton and filling up 2-liter bottles of water just so we could have a makeshift bath at my house. My mama worked every day. My mama's somebody that Tate Reeves would say is a welfare person. But my mama worked every day in a garment factory and was a preschool teacher. And we did the best we could. So I think we've got to look at this and realize that there are going to be family situations out there like mine. My mama would have loved for my daddy to have lived, to be able to raise us all together. But you know what? Life happens sometimes. And I'm not going to be cold-hearted to single parent families that sometimes find themselves in this situation. I believe everybody I meet is a child of God, is somebody that Jesus went to the cross to die for. And I believe we should treat them with dignity and respect.
All right, Commissioner, Governor, you have a rebuttal if you'd like.
Well, what I would just simply say is tonight, Brandon Presley has tried to speak on behalf of conservative Republicans. He's tried to speak on behalf of Donald Trump. And just then he tried to speak on behalf of me and tell the voters what I think and what I believe. And Brandon, you don't speak for me, and you don't speak for Republicans.
Our next question.
He mentioned me. I don't think anything in my answer right there, reciting the fact of my childhood, said anything about how the governor thinks about anything. I'm simply saying that there are families out there that have had mothers and fathers that have died that should be treated with compassion and dignity. That's Brandon Presley's position.
Thank you,
Ain't got anything to
Commissioner.
do with Tate Reeves.
We're going to move on to the next
I
question.
believe that those families should be treated with compassion as well. But Brandon lied to you again. He simply said during his answer, he said Tate Reeves believes my mama. He lied again, over and over and over.
Guys,
for 12 months in this
we're gonna
campaign,
have
he
to
has
move on
lied
to the next
time and
question.
time
I don't know
again.
what alternate reality this guy's living in. I'll say again, single parents like my mother. My daddy was shot and killed the first day of the 3rd grade. Those families count as much as dual parent families. That's my point. It hadn't got anything to do with Tate Reeves. This is about my belief about dignity of parents.
Gentlemen, we have to keep moving so that we can get to the bulk of these questions asked by our viewers. The next question is also a video question. Wendell Brewster wants to know about your plan for businesses. You can take a look at the screen.
I'm Wendell Brewster. I own a few businesses in the state of Mississippi. So my question for the candidates is, how are you guys going to help the small Black businesses in the state of Mississippi?
Commissioner Presley, you're first here.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Number one, African Americans, Black community make up 40% of our state. To ignore the business portion of the Black community is both amoral, but it's also economically stupid for our state to do. I believe that we've got to reach out to Black-owned businesses, Mississippi-owned businesses, both Black and white, to make sure that we are getting more state contracts and more business from the state to those particular companies that are based in the state of Mississippi. I get so mad when I drive by public projects that you and I as taxpayers are paying for, and we see car tags and truck tags from Texas and Oklahoma and Missouri and Maryland doing work in Mississippi, getting paid with our tax dollars, when we know good and darn well there are Mississippi companies that could be doing that business. I created the Hire Mississippi program at the Public Service Commission to up the amount of business done with Mississippi-based businesses. This is something I would want to tackle as part of the first 100 days in my administration as governor. It's something Tate Reeves has had 12 years to do something about, and you can still drive by public projects that are being paid for and given to out-of-state companies, many of whom end up being his campaign contributor. Surprise, surprise.
Governor Reeves.
Well, Mr. Brewster, thank you for that question. My goal is for everyone in Mississippi to have a good job. My goal is not only for them to have a good job, but to have a good career. It's the reason that we've invested heavily in workforce development and workforce training to give people the skills that they need for the jobs of tomorrow, not the jobs of the last 50 years. Our workforce development efforts have made a tremendous difference in an economic development run that has been unprecedented in our state. In the 10 years before I became governor, Mississippi averaged about $900 million a year in new capital investments in our state. We announced over $6 billion in new projects in 2022 alone. Just last week, we were in Noxubee County, announced a $420 million capital investment, 160 new jobs, paying between $60,000 and $70,000 a year. Just yesterday, PACCAR in Lowndes County announced that they're going to invest $200 million additional dollars, creating 100 jobs there in Lowndes County. We have the lowest unemployment rate in state history. We have more people working today than at any time in state history. Mississippi's got momentum. We've had the best economic run we've ever had, and our small businesses and our big businesses and those in between have benefited greatly from that success.
30 seconds.
Sure, thank you. You know, I think one of the key things that we need to do in economic development is to support our local-owned, Main Street, hometown businesses. These are businesses that don't pack up and go to China. They don't pack up and go to Mexico. These are our small businesses that create the vast majority of jobs in the state of Mississippi. When times get tough, they don't pack up and go to another country. They stay in our hometown. One of my focuses would be to have the Mississippi Development Authority work harder with small businesses that are located in Mississippi that are expanding. Right now, we have not had a director of the Mississippi Development Authority for 3 years. That is how dysfunctional this administration is. For 3 years, we don't even have a head economic developer. So yes, I'm proud to hear the announcements of jobs. The truth is that credit goes to the local economic developers, local county boards of supervisors, and in many cases, local communities that have invested in their public infrastructure to land the economic development.
All right, Commissioner, thank you. We're going to turn to...
It's quite an insult to the men and women who work at the Mississippi Development Authority, who work hand in glove with those local economic developers. Again, in 2022 alone, we announced over $6 billion in new projects. This is a prime example that for you to believe Brandon Presley in anything that he says, you got to believe that everything in Mississippi is bad.
All right. I would just point this out. We've not had a director of the Mississippi Development Authority for 3 years. For 3 years. If Brandon Presley is governor, we will have a director of the Mississippi Development Authority running economic development in this state. We will not do it the way the Reeves administration.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to move to a next topic now, and it's education. According to the Casey Foundation, Mississippi now ranks 32nd in the country when it comes to K-12 education. Still, multiple school districts across the state are failing. This question is for you, Governor. What is your vision for public education in Mississippi? Does it include charter schools and expanding vouchers?
The Mississippi Miracle. That's what the New York Times called it. No, the New York Times is very rarely nice or generous to Mississippi, but they called our improvements in public education the Mississippi Miracle. We passed conservative reforms in 2012 and 2013, which laid the groundwork for the best educational achievement levels in the history of Mississippi. I'm so proud of the teachers and the administrators, and I'm so proud of the parents and the kids for the work that they have done to achieve this. 10 years ago, our high school graduation rate in Mississippi was 72.5%. Last year, it was 88.9%. 4,000 more kids graduated high school last year than would have just 10 years ago. Fourth grade reading, we've gone from 49th in the country to 21st best in the country. In fourth grade math, we've gone from 50th best in America to 23rd best in America. And amongst African American students, our African American fourth graders 10 years ago, when compared to their peers, were 45th best in America. Last year, because of our conservative reforms, our black fourth graders scored 5th best in America. That's something we should all celebrate.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Let me say this. It's evident who educators in this race support and know really will have their back. I'm proud to stand here tonight being endorsed by the Mississippi Association of Educators, the largest group of school teachers across this state. They looked at Tate Reeves' record, they looked at my record, they looked at my platform, and they chose to endorse me over him. The truth is the pay raises that he talks about, that he brags about a lot of the times, ended up being, one teacher told me just last week up in North Mississippi, she netted out $23 a month. $23 a month in teacher pay, and he brags about the teacher pay raises. Look, I think we're measuring wrong on where we're going in teacher pay. The governor points out, and I think he's correct about this, that we compete for economic development all around the United States, all around the United States. And our competitors aren't just Alabama and Tennessee. Well, when it comes to school teachers, our competitors are not just Alabama and Tennessee. And we brag about getting to the Southeastern average. We need to get teacher pay to the national average to keep, retain, and attract school teachers in Mississippi. It's why the MAE, the Mississippi Association of Educators, largest group of teachers in the state, endorsed me over Tate Reeves in this campaign.
All right, Commissioner, to the governor now.
Thank you. I appreciate Commissioner Presley recognizing that under my governorship, we've passed the largest teacher pay raise in state history. Every teacher in Mississippi makes at least $6,100 more per year today than they did when I became governor. It's the largest teacher pay raise in state history. And when he talks about the teachers union that is supporting him, the teachers union, the fact of the matter is I saw that he had folks knocking doors from the American Federation of Teachers. You know who their president is? Randy Weingartner. She is the most liberal person when it comes to education ever. She is the person that led the effort to shut down our schools during COVID-19. And if it were up to her and her members, the schools still wouldn't be open. That's a big distinction between red state governors and blue state governors, is we got our kids back in school, and the achievement levels that we're showing today are obvious, and it's because we got them back in school. They're not seeing those kind of results in those states where there are blue state governors.
Let me respond to that if you don't mind.
Yes.
MAE, Mississippi Association of Educators, governor, is made up of educators, school teachers. School teachers are who make up the MAE, and I'm proud to have their endorsement tonight. And I guess he's got a little bit of amnesia about all the shutdowns he did in the middle of COVID, but we'll get to that maybe in another question. But MAE is made up of school teachers. They're made up of classroom teachers. And they looked at the two candidates for governor, and they picked me over him. School teachers that he brags about this raise netted, in some cases, as the lady I pointed out, $23 a month. We should be shooting for the national average to pay our school teachers. Tate Reeves has had 12 long years to do it. He had never gotten it done.
Presley, our next question is dealing with education.
There is no possible way that a teacher netted $23 a month on a $6,100 a year pay raise. Brandon Presley can't do math. He lies really well, but he can't do math.
Well, we can connect you with
Gentlemen, let's...
No, we'll be glad to do that because
Commissioner, let me stop
she's
you
lying
there.
or you're lying, and I'll bet on you.
Let's continue this conversation with our next question, which is also dealing with education. I want to make sure we get it in. It is another video question from our viewer, Sammy Sutton, who has a question about funding for education.
Hi, my name is Sammy Sutton from Brandon, Mississippi. My question for both candidates is, what you're going to do about the school system, how you're going to get equal funding for all schools, such as the Jackson Public School and the special schools in the Delta.
Commissioner Presley, you first.
Thanks so much. I think that's a great question. First thing you do in Mississippi when it comes to public education is you put your money where your mouth is. We got an old saying in rural Mississippi, Tate's probably not familiar with it, but it's called put your money where your mouth is. And the truth is, we have not fully funded public education but 2 times in the entire existence of our state funding formula. Only 2 times, only twice. This guy's been lieutenant governor and governor for 12 years. He should have been funding public schools, fully funding public schools all 12 years. It hasn't happened. And when it doesn't happen, I call Tate Reeves a hide and seek tax increaser because he hides behind some policy and seeks somebody else to raise the taxes. When the legislature and the governor do not fully fund public education, it falls upon local boards of aldermen, local city councils, local boards of supervisors, local school districts to do what? Raise your property taxes. And when you see your property taxes go up for public education, you can thank Tate Reeves for it because they have underfunded public schools year after year after year. Yes, they funded it this year, but man, that is a bad batting average when we've seen property taxes go up. Put your money where your mouth is, fully fund public schools first, and stop the type of giveaway programs of Brett Favre's $5 million volleyball court, his personal trainer, $1,300,000. Take that money and put it into public education.
Governor Reeves.
Brandon Presley lies again. No one's surprised by that because he's been doing it all night tonight. He's been doing it the entirety of this campaign. Back to the MAE, the Mississippi Association of Educators is a teachers union that is comprised of just less than 2,000 people. There are almost 40,000 teachers throughout the state of Mississippi. And so when he says that this teachers union is supportive of him, that literally leaves out 95% of teachers that understand that we've invested in public education, but we've invested in the classroom. The teachers union that supports Brandon wants us to give unlimited resources to the district office. We want to invest money in the classroom. We want to invest money in teacher salaries. That's the reason that $6,100 a year raise, which costs somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 million a year. All told, we've increased funding by about $400 million a year to our public schools. And even Brandon just admitted that this year that we did it, but he's upset that we didn't do it sometime 15 years ago.
Thank you. I'm very upset. You got that right, Governor. I'm very upset of the fact that you've not fully funded public schools. I sure as heck am. I'm mad. It's not just upset. I'm mad when I see my local property taxes go up and people throughout the state see their local property taxes go up. If you're watching tonight and your local property taxes went up to pay for education, you can thank Tate Reeves for it because they have not fully funded public schools every year. He wants to count one time and say he's got this great record. Let me go back to MAE a minute. You don't think those 2,000 teachers matter? You don't respect those 2,000 teachers? You want to disparage them? You count your numbers all you want. Those are 2,000 classroom teachers taking a job you wouldn't take, spending money out of their own pocket to buy supplies for the classroom that you wouldn't do. And so I'm not going to stand here and let you disparage school teachers. I'm not going to do it.
Right.
I would just simply say that it is not a surprise that the teachers union that represents less than 5% of teachers across Mississippi would endorse the liberal Democrat.
Would you take a job as a school
We've got to move on.
We've got to move on, gentlemen. We've got to move on. And the next question is about Jackson. We're going to go to more video tonight. Courtney from Ridgeland wants to know how you both plan to combat crime.
My name is Courtney. I live in Ridgeland, and my question for both candidates is, what are you going to do to actually make a difference in the crime in the area, especially, getting into Jackson? I know a lot of people talk about it, but what are you actually going to do about it?
Governor?
Well, thank you, and thank you for that question. We've worked very hard to do a number of different things to address the violent crime in the city of Jackson. I was really the champion in the Mississippi legislature 6 or 7 years ago when we created the Capital Complex Improvement District. We created the CCID so as to allow for more state funding into the CCID. And since that time, we've spent almost $90 million has been allocated to projects across Jackson. In addition to that, we have spent about $63.8 million on water and sewer projects in the city of Jackson. In addition to that, since I've been governor, we've spent almost $64 million at Jackson State University. But we've really prioritized our spending within the CCID on Capitol Police. We have moved Capitol Police from an entity that just looked over state buildings to a real police force. We've hired over 150 police officers. And I'll tell you, Megan, I'll tell you, Troy, there is no doubt in my mind that Jackson is safer today because of the men and women of Capitol Police who get up every day and put on their uniform. And you can ask virtually every resident of the city of Jackson how appreciative they are of the Capitol Police. I'm appreciative of them, and I hope everyone watching tonight understands the important and vital role that they are playing in getting law and order restored to the streets of Jackson.
Thank you, Governor. Commissioner?
Yeah, let me say, look, the two candidates standing up here, I worked at a law enforcement agency both while I was in high school and also while I was going through community college, and I plan to be the most pro-law enforcement governor this state has ever seen. I believe we have got to do things to combat crime in Mississippi. We have got to work with local officials. We have got to work with not only those on the city level, but those on the county level for an approach to go after criminals wherever they are. Jackson has a crime problem. Jackson's not the only city that's got a crime problem. Right now, tonight, Troy, right now, tonight, in some of our most rural counties after midnight, there will not be one deputy sheriff on patrol. And if there is one, there won't be two. If that deputy were called to a domestic violence call, and I used to have to dispatch deputies to domestic violence calls, they have no backup. As governor, I would plan to make sure we have 24-hour patrol in all counties, a minimum of 2 deputies on in all counties, and create a cops program where we put more cops on the street. I think it's important that we have strong law enforcement in Mississippi and that we combat crime. We do that working locally with both city and county officials and the state being integral in that. We need to fund more cops on the street.
All right, thank you.
Governor Reeves, response?
I would just simply say that you heard Brandon say that if he were governor, he would listen and do what local officials told him. I don't think that the mayor of the city of Jackson wants there to be more police on the streets, and I certainly don't think he wants there to be more Capitol Police officers on the street. So if you live in Jackson or if you come to Jackson to work and you think Capitol Police is doing a good job, then I'm the person you ought to vote for. If you think they ought to go away, then you probably ought to vote for the other guy.
Let me say this, the governor needs to clean out his ears, because I didn't say I would take orders from local officials. Clean your ears out. What I said was you should work with local officials. And there is no way in which we're going to combat crime in Mississippi without working with local officials. I was a small town mayor of the little town I came down here tonight from, 1,908 people. And let me tell you something, the Nettleton Police Department needs to work with the Monroe County Sheriff's Department and the Lee County Sheriff's Department. And when we do that, we have a much better approach on crime.
Gentlemen, our next question is on a related topic, staying with the city of Jackson. It is, of course, not only the state's capital and seat of government, but generates the highest amount of tax revenue in the state. However, a recent audit done by the state auditor's office shows a decline in revenue and expenditures. As governor, what would you do to invest in and support the city, Commissioner?
Thanks. I think there are two things in the city of Jackson we've got to do, two economic engines that the state needs to be a part of, and I think will help the city as a whole. Number one, the University of Mississippi Medical Center. Part of that is through Medicaid expansion. We need to support the University of Mississippi Medical Center. If we expand Medicaid in Mississippi, help 230,000 working people, save 34 hospitals, and are able to invest in our healthcare system statewide, that has a benefit to UMMC. UMMC is an economic engine in the state, in the city of Jackson, and we need to invest in it and make sure that we're growing our state's only trauma level hospital to make sure we've got care, but also that's an economic engine for the city. Secondly is Jackson State University. You know, my vision of Jackson State is to be a true urban university. I think we have got to invest in historically black colleges and universities. Jackson State is sitting square in the city of Jackson, Mississippi, and we need to do more to invest in our HBCUs and show them the respect and dignity that we afford all other colleges and universities in the state. Jackson State is a great place for us to start, and I think those two are great engines for economic development in the city of Jackson.
Governor Reeves, your response.
Well, I would just point out, if you don't mind, that when we announced our plan to help save rural hospitals, the head of the University of Mississippi Medical Center stood right behind me because she understands what that plan means to the university. She understands what it means to rural healthcare all across the state of Mississippi. And I appreciate Dr. Luann Woodward standing behind me when we made that announcement. More importantly than that, though, I appreciate that the fact that her and her team have sat in numerous and countless meetings over the last 6 months working on ways to solve our problems. I will tell you, when I ran for governor and when I was sworn in, I told the people of Mississippi, I'm not trying to hide our challenges, I'm trying to fix our challenges. And look, we all know that we have more work to do, but when it comes to the city of Jackson, as I mentioned earlier, we've got to continue to invest in Jackson. It is our only major metropolitan area. It's critically important that we see a turnaround. It starts with law and order. It starts with Capitol Police. But the investments that we have made in the CCID, for instance, which clearly has a state interest to take care of those state office buildings that literally brings thousands and thousands of our fellow residents into the city every single day. We've put about $90 million in projects in the CCID, $64 million in water and sewer for the city, $63.8 million for Jackson State University. And this is just during the time that I've been governor. That doesn't even include the hundreds of millions of dollars that we spent in the city during my tenure as lieutenant governor.
Move on, Governor. To the next question, the Supreme Court ruling in the Dobbs decision. Abortion now, for the most part, illegal in Mississippi. The state's only abortion clinic closed last July. Attorney General Lynn Fitch has joined other states in challenging the expansion of HIPAA laws. And if her objection is successful, it could allow government officials to access patients' out-of-state private medical records. This could potentially allow the state to prosecute in cases where a woman leaves Mississippi to receive an abortion. As governor, we'll start with you, Governor Reeves. Would you support legislation that would allow prosecution for out-of-state abortions?
You know, I'm proud that the state of Mississippi led the charge to overturn Roe v. Wade. That is a decision that individual states ought to make as to what their abortion laws look like. And the fact of the matter is, though, this is an area and a topic where Brandon gets a little bit confused. You see, he has tried to tell the people with millions of dollars from out of state that he is pro-life, and I have no reason to believe that he's not. But I just find it confusing why the vice chairman of the most pro-abortion organization in America, Emily's List believes in abortion up and even beyond a baby being born. And the vice chairman of Emily's List wrote Brandon not one, but 2 checks in this campaign, the most recent one being within the last 2 weeks and being for $50,000. I don't understand why he would even take that check if he's truly pro-life. He ought to send it back to California.
Commissioner.
I wish he would have answered the question that you asked him. I'd be glad to cede him a little time to do that, actually. But let me say this. Unlike Tate Reeves, let me say this to you, Governor. Anybody that contributes to my campaign, I'm not like you. I'm not going to sell my soul for $20 for campaign money. So if somebody donates to my campaign, it doesn't change my beliefs 1 second. The reason you throw that at me so much is you know it's within yourself. That's the reason you accuse me of this. Anybody donate money to me can hang it up. They think they're going to tell Brandon Presley what to do. Nobody from the President of the United States, the head of any political party, is going to tell me what to think and what to do. Listen, I'm a Christian. My faith teaches me to be pro-life. My faith teaches me to be pro-life. And I support exceptions in our law for rape, incest, and life of the mother. But I'm pro-life, and I have been forever. Tate Reeves knows that. He wants to accuse me of things because he would sell his soul for any campaign contribution, and I won't do what a donor tells me to do. He's looking himself in the mirror when he makes that accusation.
First of all, I'm not going to question his Christianity. Second of all, I don't even believe that he would sell his soul for $20. I believe him when he says that. Maybe the first thing he said tonight that I believe. But if you look at how much his solar panel buddies gave him, they gave him a lot more than $20. They gave him tens of thousands and maybe even as much as $100,000. I think he sold his soul for that. Not only do I think he sold his soul for it, I think he broke Mississippi law. The fact of the matter is 3 public service commissioners have gone to jail for doing exactly what Brandon Presley has done. And so for him to say he wouldn't sell his soul for $20, I'll take him at his word. He charged solar panel buddies a lot more than $20.
I hate to cut you off, gentlemen, Commissioner.
You'll sell yours are a lot cheaper than $20.
Commissioner,
And-
candidates,
no, no,
I've
no,
got to stop
I'm
you there
gonna address
because we
this.
have to move into our closing statements.
Well,
in order
let me
to
say
have
one
time to
quick.
get
Let me
them in
say one
tonight.
quick
Very
thing.
quickly.
He
1
knows
second.
that adds a lie, and the truth of the matter is, he knows it is a complete falsehood. He wants to distract from the fact he's at the center of the state's largest public corruption scandal, and he continues to fund his campaign from money from
Thank
Zach
you,
and Nancy
Commissioner.
New right before they go to jail.
You'll have your closing statement in just a moment. Governor Reeves, Commissioner, you each have 2 minutes for your closing statements. Governor Reeves, your 2 minutes starts now.
Well, thank you, Megan, and thanks, Troy, for hosting this debate. We sincerely appreciate WAPT for giving us the opportunity to set the record straight. And here is the record that I'm running for re-election on: the lowest unemployment rate in state history, more people working in our state than ever before. Our fourth graders have gone from 49th best in fourth grade reading to 21st best in America. Our fourth graders have gone from 50th best in fourth grade math to 23rd best. We're better than the national average. Our high school graduation rates today are better than the national average. And we gave our teachers the largest pay raise in state history. Our economic development record has been unmatched by any governor in our history. The fact of the matter is, we brought $6 billion in new projects to Mississippi in 2022 alone, and we haven't done all that we're going to do. In fact, we're going to do a whole lot more. We're going to do a whole lot more for our teachers. Now, conversely, my opponent has outsourced his entire campaign to the Democrat National Committee. Joe Biden and his buddies have funded his campaign to the tune of 80% of the money that he has raised has come from California, New York, Massachusetts, and Washington, D.C. It ain't charity. They know if he is elected, he's going to govern like Joe Biden has governed America. And so if you believe in your heart that Joe Biden's done a good job as president, with inflation up by 20% on groceries, oil prices up far greater than that. If you believe Joe Biden's done a good job, then he's your man. But if you believe that Mississippi has momentum, that we're making Mississippi the best place in America to invest capital, create jobs, and the best place in America to raise a family. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I want to say thank you to WAPT tonight, and thank you to my fellow Mississippians that are tuning in all across this state. I think that you couldn't have seen a greater contrast in leadership tonight than between me and Tate Reeves. Look, I'm from a little small town in Nettleton, population 1,906. I traveled from that tiny small town down here tonight to talk with you about my vision for the state of Mississippi. I learned my values in that small town of hard work. I became a mayor there and cut property taxes twice, went to the Public Service Commission and voted against more rate increases than anybody in Mississippi history. I learned my values from my uncle, Harold Ray Presley, who was sheriff of Lee County. I brought his badge with me here tonight. He was murdered in the line of duty, protecting the citizens of Lee County. And what I learned from him was this, that as a leader, you got to lead from the front. You got to lead straight from the front on the issues that matter. We've got crisis in Mississippi in healthcare with hospitals set to shut down. We've got a corruption crisis in Mississippi that Tate Reeves has been the chief cheerleader of his entire public career. And as governor, I'll have something he doesn't have. That's the guts and the backbone to stand up and fix these problems in the state of Mississippi. So I want to ask you this question tonight. When you go into that ballot box on Tuesday and you get ready to mark that ballot, I want you to look at these names and ask yourself this question. Which one of those two guys has the guts and the backbone to take on the biggest fight for the people of Mississippi? Which one of them, Brandon Presley, can't be bought and sold, won't be told what to do? And I ask for your vote. Join our campaign at BrandonPresley.com.
Commissioner Presley, Governor Reeves, thank you for being here with us tonight, and thank you for watching tonight.
That's right. Don't forget, Election Day is November 7th. Good night.
What do you guys think about that? I thought that was great. Governor Presley, he did amazing. And I see why Governor Tate Reeves refused to have a debate, because he wiped the floor, mopped the floor with him. Mop the floor. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. I want your thoughts. I'm getting ready to go ahead and close the chat down. I got to put my son to sleep. But in the chat, like at the bottom or when it closes out, I want you guys to go ahead and comment below. What is one thing that Governor Presley, I'm just going to go ahead and just put it out there. Governor Presley said in his debate that made you feel like he was the right person for the job. I want to say this. I noticed that Tate Reeves never directly answered the question. He was taking on a role that you see when you see Democrats and Republicans debating each other, where they don't actually answer the question. So one thing that was refreshing was that Brandon Presley was actually answering the questions. And then Governor Tate Reeves had to come back with a rebuttal, but it still didn't have anything to do with what the question was about. There are probably 3 or 4 things that, regardless of if you're Black or white in the state of Mississippi, you can all agree that they're pressing issues. One of them is, of course, the state of rural hospitals, access to quality care, and Medicaid expansion. I think that that particular issue transcends race. I think that teachers getting better wages and investment in education, that transcends race. The issue now, and has always been, rural area voters and just lower income whites. Are they able to not vote against themselves? Are they able to not vote against themselves? That is the only issue. Mississippi is 40% Black. If you can get enough Black people to get out the vote, combined with 11 to 12% white people, you can win. Bishop said Tater gives teachers a pay raise that still has them below the majority of the teachers in the nation. $6,000 wasn't to do with what teachers do. He lies, and he doesn't give two about Blacks nor the poor. I would venture to say he actually doesn't care about any of the Mississippians. It's all about his government contracts and the nonprofit organizations and the elitists. Because if you are continuously giving away contracts to people who donate to your campaign, or you're basically turning a blind eye to things such as infrastructure, you're not just harming just poor people. Yeah, they're disproportionately affected, but they really kept it really hush. But the football coach who had a heart attack, and he did not have quality hospital to go to, he had to come all the way to Jackson. I believe that part of his issue was the fact that he didn't have quality care, the ability to get quality care where he was at. They did not have the capacity to handle a heart attack where he was. And he had to be take an ambulance all the way to Jackson. That's precious time for someone who has like a heart attack and would have needed probably a major type of surgery. He wasn't able to get that quality care where he was at. And that's because of the disparities in healthcare and those rural hospitals. It's also crazy that he started talking about Jackson's water issues being resolved, knowing that that was due to basically the government saying that Jackson was the victim of environmental racism, and a bill was passed for the water infrastructure, basically because of the government purposely and intentionally underfunding Jackson, as well as with crime. Let's just keep it a buck. They've already revealed that a lot of the court cases and the judges are backlogged, and the ability for them to test kits and to run properly has been sideswiped by the fact that they don't have the correct amount of funding. Brandon also talked about what he would do for JSU, the only candidate to even mention. I will say this, Presley is very bold. And we'll see in this election whether that will be to his benefit or not. He was at all of the homecomings. So he went to Alcorn, he went to Valley, and he went to Jackson State. He went to all three. And he was campaigning like crazy. Education, education, education. I do think that it's surprising not just Mississippi, but like on a national level, the amount of funding that the Democrats have put into this race. I don't think they put that much into it because they didn't think he could win. And so now you see like this small push from outside when I feel like they should have pushed more. Mental health programs have been cut out of almost all of our healthcare facilities in the state, which is insane. Tate is taking Mississippi down through there with his Trump-led governing. And it's interesting that he had Trump to basically endorse him because there still are a lot of folks that are Trumpers in those rural areas, and whatever Trump says, they're going to just go with. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in to the debate, and I will see you either probably Friday or Saturday for the Jackson State versus Alabama, or not even Texas Southern, excuse me. I got my days mixed up. Jackson State versus Texas Southern. Thank you all for tuning in. You all have a good night.
Clerk.